Who has two thumbs and loves movies? This guy. Hello, movie lovers. I hope you do enjoy the video. Bob for Bob's movie review here, and today I'm bringing you my review of History's Greatest of All Time with Peyton Manning. All right, viewers, I got around to watching History's Greatest of All Time, hosted by Peyton Manning. Now, why Peyton Manning hosted this, I don't know. It didn't really have anything to do with football, and that's what you would assume with Peyton Manning. It wasn't even necessarily people. Maybe one of them were people. They were more places or things, and it's 8 episodes, and they basically are top 10 lists. Now, what I was really confused about was how are they coming up with these top 10 lists? It just seemed so vague. And then as the episodes progress, I think they realize the same thing. So then they start saying, our team of experts or our panel of experts or whatever determine the top 10. And then the last couple, because even then I was like, well, what criteria are they using? And I think it was like the last 2 episodes, they're like, oh, stats, impact, and something else. And I was like, it's still super vague. Like I didn't really get what the lists were based off of. So the first one we had was Stadium Smackdown, just the top 10 stadiums. Again, based off of what? I don't know. They just had a ranking 1 through 10. And there seemed to be no consistency of what made one thing better than the other. Also, there is a panel or people they're interviewing about these things. I only knew who one was, the guy from Man Eats Food. The rest, I didn't know who anybody was. They do say who they are, but I didn't know who anybody was. And they aren't ranking the things. Like, it's not them, it's somebody else. So they're just reacting to the items on the list. And some of them I definitely had to question whether they were fed information, especially on the Daredevil one. Because whoever heard of these people, obviously, I'll talk to that a little bit more. They also seem to disagree with the lists a lot. There was at one point in the candy one where somebody said something wrong and they left it in, and I just felt like, why make them look bad like that? Because she's like, nobody knows who invented the jelly bean, and then they're like, the inventor of the jelly bean. Like, why would you leave that in? Like, it just seems kind of rude. And so I feel like the people didn't necessarily always know a lot about it. The car one, I felt like a lot of stuff in there wasn't really facts. Like, they were just kind of making things up, or they had their numbers wrong, or they're like, they put the Mazda Miata on the list, which is the Mazda Miata a sports car? Okay, maybe. And they say it's the greatest selling sports car of all time. They don't even make it anymore. Like, it wasn't around for a super long time. They still make the car, but they changed the name. So is it technically the same car? They say that, the Dodge Charger has such great longevity, but it's been canceled twice. Like, it's just kind of really weird. And that was the one where I felt I kind of knew the most stuff. And I just felt like they were saying a lot of really weird stuff that didn't make a lot of sense. And the other ones could be the same, just I don't know them as well. So anyways, Stadium Smackdown. And then we went to Fast and Furious Face Off, which was the top 10 countdown of sports cars. Now, they did a lot of cars from the early 90s and back. And again, what's the criteria for greatest sports car? The fastest, the best looking, the best selling? I don't know. Like, they didn't say anything of what the criteria was. They had a lot of, like 50s, 60s, they had cars more like muscle cars, the Dodge Charger, the Mustang. And then even when they went with like exotic cars, Lamborghini, like they did the Countach, like there's a million Lamborghinis that look better and are faster, are more status symbols than the Countach. Like, I don't know why that was the one they picked. Just kind of really weird stuff like that. And then they went with Candy Clash. And again, what's the criteria? Top 10 candies of all time, best tasting, best selling. I mean, if you do best tasting, I guess you'd have to interview enough people and get a sample. But it was definitely interesting. I enjoyed them all. Like, I thought they were all super interesting, but it's just confusing to me what criteria they used. And then they had Invention Showdown, the greatest inventions of all time. This one to me is so subjective and like hard to really like how far does it reach? Like, let's just, one of them was the toilet. Now, I mean, everybody uses the toilet every day, several times a day. It's added so much convenience to life. Where does that compare to the printing press? Especially in modern times where printed media is kind of dying, you know, but maybe it was really important in its day, you know, and it's so hard to just understand how they come up with that top 10 list. Then we have Dueling Daredevils. That was probably one of the most interesting ones because we got to see a lot of stunts, you know, and I hadn't heard of 8 or 9 of the 10, you know, of course, Evel Knievel, really well known. And a lot of them were like people like scaling buildings and stuff like that. And it's like, what's a daredevil exactly? Like, I think of a stuntman, but again, what is the criteria? Most famous, most well known, doing the most extreme stunts. I don't know. Titan Takedown. That one was the Titans of Industry, and again, the list seemed really weird. And lots of information though. Toy Wars, the greatest toys ever made. You know, the Slinky was on there, and I'm like, okay, maybe it was super popular at its time. I don't know. Just the list again. I mean, there is stuff on there. Like they have Barbie, and you know, Barbie is like just eternal. It never dies, you know. So I get that, but you know, like the Slinky, and they did just Nerf in general. Like there's so many different Nerf toys. It seems a little too vague. And then Perfect Pairs, which might have been the strangest one of all time, and that was like, you know, Venus and Serena Williams. And I thought maybe they'd do Batman and Robin. They hinted at it, but they didn't do Batman and Robin. Some strange pairs for sure, but I did like the idea of the show. I did enjoy the episodes. Like I really liked watching them. Just as I'm watching them, I feel like they needed to do a little more to the show. They need to put a little more into it. Maybe interview people and ask them, you know, okay, what's your top 10? And then, you know, maybe use that instead of just like these random experts or whatever, because it's just confusing what criteria they're using. Or, you know, interview the people who are talking in the show and they choose the top 10. So that way there's like some explanation, because they could say, well, this is why I choose number 1, or this is why I choose number 2, instead of just like, why is this one on the list? You know, they seemed confused at times too, and so it doesn't really offer a lot of insight. What they would do is basically they'd be like, okay, Venus and Serena, and then they would go into their history and their accolades and stuff like that, but you're confused why they're on the list. Not that I'm saying they don't deserve to be on the list, but why they're on the list, why they're whatever number they are, what they did better than somebody else. It's just you got to accept the top 10 list, I guess. So like I said, I did enjoy this show, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a 3 out of 5. I definitely get into stuff like this, informative stuff. I just feel they could have tweaked it a little more for my personal preference. I really hope you did enjoy the video. If you did, I would appreciate if you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.